My name is Ava. I am 32 years old. I was always the responsible middle child my mother counted on. When she died last month, I never imagined my family would turn on me so viciously. Today, my father pointed his finger in my face and shouted words that still echo in my mind. Return the 98,000 or don't come back. My sister Amanda twisted the knife. You took Mom's money. We all know. Little did they realize what was about to happen when I placed those teller slips on the counter. Before I tell you how their faces went pale, let me know where you're watching from. Please hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to stand up to family who tried to bully you into silence. Growing up in our suburban Pittsburgh home, our family roles were clearly defined. My father, Harold, was the stern businessman who built his construction company from nothing. He expected perfection and rarely gave praise. My older sister Amanda was my dad's obvious favorite. She could charm him into anything with her calculated smiles and strategic compliments. My younger brother Jackson was the family troublemaker. He was constantly getting into scrapes, but was somehow always forgiven after a flash of his dimpled grin. Then there was my mother, Elaine. She was the warm heart of our home, the peacekeeper who smoothed over my father's harsh edges. Mom was the one who went to every school event, remembered every birthday, and created the small moments of joy that made our house feel like a home. When Dad would rage about something small, Mom would quietly guide us to another room. She would whisper, "Your father works hard to provide for us. He shows his love differently." Our childhood was shaped by these two different parenting styles. Dad treated parenting like a business. It was all about results, with clear expectations and consequences. Mom parented with connection and understanding. When I brought home straight A's, Dad would nod and say, "That's what I expect." Mom would hug me tight and whisper, "I'm so proud of who you are. Everything changed 2 years ago." Mom was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctor's words fell like bombs in that sterile hospital room. 6 months to a year, with treatment. Dad immediately went into problem-solving mode. He researched specialists and experimental treatments. Amanda cried dramatically in the hospital hallway, but had an important meeting she couldn't miss. Jackson showed up late. He had missed the doctor's explanation completely. I was the one who sat beside Mom as she took in the news. I held her hand when she decided against experimental treatments. I promised to be there every step of the way. And I was. I had a full-time job as a loan officer at Pittsburgh Community Bank. But I became Mom's primary caregiver. I scheduled her appointments and drove her to them. I managed her medications. I researched options for her care. I spent nights on the uncomfortable recliner in her hospital room. Amanda rarely visited, even though she lived just 20 minutes away. There was always some excuse: work deadlines, her kids' activities, or social events she couldn't miss. She would sweep in occasionally with expensive flowers and loud declarations of love. But she never stayed long enough to empty a bedpan or help Mom shower. Jackson showed up more often. But you could never count on him. He would appear with Mom's favorite ice cream and make her laugh with wild stories. But he couldn't be relied on for the daily grind of care. He would promise to take the night shift, then text that his car broke down or he had a stomach bug. Dad retreated further into his work as Mom got sicker. He paid for the best care money could buy. But he couldn't stand to see her physical decline. When he did visit, he would talk about business or the news, anything but the reality of what was happening. "You'll beat this, Elaine," he would say, even as she grew thinner and weaker before our eyes. The 18 months that followed were a blur of medical terms, insurance paperwork, and precious moments with Mom. Despite the doctor's initial prediction, Mom fought hard. She went through rounds of chemo that left her exhausted but determined. "I'm not ready to leave my children yet," she told me during one particularly rough night. As her caregiver, I saw sides of my mother that no one else did. In the quiet, early morning hours when pain kept her awake, she would share stories from her youth. She told me about ambitions she had set aside and regrets she had carried silently. "I always wanted to open a small bookstore," she confessed one night. "Your father thought it was impractical." During her final weeks, Mom became more intentional with our talks. She asked me to get specific things from her closet: old photo albums, jewelry boxes, and finally, a small leather-bound journal I had never seen before. "When the time is right, you'll understand," she said. Her once strong hands were now fragile as she pressed the journal into mine. On her last day, by some cruel twist of fate, I was the only one there. Dad was out of town closing an important deal. Amanda had taken her kids to a soccer tournament. Jackson's phone went straight to voicemail. I sat holding Mom's hand as her breathing slowed. I told her it was okay to rest now. You've done enough for everyone," I whispered. "We'll be okay." She squeezed my hand one final time before she slipped away, taking a piece of my heart with her. The funeral was held at the Presbyterian church where Mom had volunteered for years. The room was overflowing with people whose lives she had touched. There were neighbors she had helped through tough times, students she had tutored, and friends who considered her family. Each family member handled their grief differently. Their reactions reflected their relationship with Mom. Dad treated the funeral like a business event he had to manage perfectly. He coordinated with the funeral director, approved the program, and greeted mourners with stoic handshakes. His eyes stayed dry. His back was straight as he gave a eulogy that praised Mom's role as a supportive wife who understood the sacrifices needed for success. Amanda's grief was theatrical and public. She sobbed loudly during the service. She required multiple people to comfort her. Between her dramatic crying spells, I saw her checking her reflection in her compact mirror and answering business emails on her phone. When no one was watching, her expression would change to impatience. She checked her watch repeatedly. Jackson's emotional response was unpredictable but genuine. He would stand stone-faced one moment, then excuse himself when waves of grief hit him. He gave a heartfelt, rambling eulogy that made everyone laugh and cry. He captured Mom's spirit in a way Dad's formal speech could not. I moved through the day in a fog. I managed details and supported others. My own grief was tightly contained. There would be time for my tears later, in private, as Mom would have wanted. 1 week after we laid Mom to rest, we gathered in the wood-paneled office of Walter Green, the family lawyer, for the reading of her will. The tension in the room was thick. We settled into leather chairs arranged before his large desk. Lane was very specific about her wishes. Walter began, adjusting his reading glasses. "The family home goes to Harold, of course. Her personal savings are to be divided equally among the 4 of you." Dad nodded as if this was expected. Then Walter cleared his throat and continued. "However, Elaine named Ava as the executrix of the estate, with full authority to distribute assets according to the will's specifications." Dad's head snapped up. His expression darkened. "Excuse me, I'm her husband. That should be my role." Walter continued calmly. "Elaine was quite insistent on this point, Harold." He turned a page. "Additionally, Elaine's entire jewelry collection, including family heirlooms, is left specifically to Avi." Amanda made a choked sound beside me. "That's not fair. I'm the oldest daughter. Those pieces should be mine to pass down to my daughters." Walter peered at her over his glasses. Elaine noted that Ava always appreciated the stories behind each piece, not just their monetary value. The meeting continued with other bequests. Dad received Mom's shares in his company. Amanda got the vacation property in the Poconos. Jackson was given Mom's art collection and vintage car. The value was surprisingly equal, even if the sentiment was not. As executrix, I received copies of all financial documents, bank statements, and property deeds. I promised everyone complete transparency throughout the process. "I'll create a shared folder with all documentation so everyone can see every transaction," I offered, trying to ease the growing tension. Dad huffed. "Just make sure nothing disappears in the process." That night, while reviewing the financial documents, I discovered something unexpected. There was a separate bank account in Mom's name only. It contained 98,000. This account wasn't mentioned specifically in the will. That meant it would be part of the general assets to be divided. But something about it felt intentional, especially after our recent private talks. The next day, I visited Mom's bank to get more information. The account had been opened 15 years ago. Small deposits had been made regularly. The bank manager remembered Mom well. She'd come in personally each month. Never used electronic transfers. Always said she preferred the personal touch. As I drove home, a memory came back to me. Mom had asked me to handle something important after she was gone. There are things that matter that the others might not understand, she had said, squeezing my hand. I trust you to do what's right. The initial family meeting about the estate went smoothly enough on the surface. I presented organized spreadsheets detailing assets, outstanding bills, and the proposed timeline for distribution. But underneath the politeness, I felt a current of suspicion, especially from Dad and Amanda. What's this unmarked account? Dad asked, pointing to the 98,000 account on the asset sheet. It appears to be Mom's personal savings, I explained. I'm still gathering information about its purpose. Convenient that you're just now mentioning it, Amanda murmured, exchanging a look with Dad. I've listed every account and asset Mom had, I responded evenly. As promised, complete transparency. As the days passed and I continued sorting through Mom's things, the whispers behind my back grew louder. Amanda questioned every decision I made as executrix. Dad demanded daily updates. Even Jackson started looking at me with uncertainty in his eyes. The 98,000 had become the focus of unspoken accusations. I still didn't understand its purpose myself. 3 weeks after the funeral, while sorting through Mom's closet, I found a hidden compartment in her jewelry box. It was the same one she had asked me to get during her final days. Inside was the leather journal she had given me, and a sealed envelope with my name, written in her familiar handwriting. My hands trembled as I carried these items to her reading chair by the window. The late afternoon sun created a warm spotlight on the worn pages as I began to read. The journal went back 20 years. It revealed a side of my mother I had never fully understood. In careful, private entries, Mom documented Dad's complete financial control throughout their marriage. Even though she contributed to the household, she never had access to their joint accounts without his explanation and approval. Harold rejected my request for a personal account again today. One entry from 18 years ago read, he says a joint account is simpler, but then he questions every purchase I make. The children needed new winter clothes, but he said last year's should still fit. I purchased them anyway and told him they were on sale. Another entry detailed the beginning of her secret saving. Started my fun today. Just the 20 from the grocery money. Harold never checks the receipts as long as dinner is on the table. $20 each week will add up eventually. Someday this might make a difference. A page after page revealed Mom's quiet rebellion. Small amounts were squirreled away from household funds. Birthday money from relatives she pretended was less than she got. Occasional substitute teaching jobs Dad didn't know about. It was all meticulously tracked. All funneled into her secret account. But the purpose of these savings left me breathless. Mom had been planning for years to donate this money to the East Side Women's Shelter, a place that helped survivors of domestic abuse rebuild their lives. The final journal entries revealed why this cause mattered so deeply to her. Before I met Harold, there was Robert, she wrote. My college boyfriend who first charmed, then controlled, then hurt me. When I finally found the courage to leave, the shelter took me in, kept me safe, helped me restart. Without them, I might have gone back. Without them, I might not have survived to meet Harold, to have my beautiful children. The envelope contained a letter addressed to me, dated just 2 months before her death. My dearest Ava, if you're reading this, I have finally shared my complete truth with you. That the 98,000 I've saved represents small acts of independence over 20 years of marriage. Harold is not an evil man, but his need for control, especially financial control, has been the silent struggle of my marriage. My wish is for this money to go to the East Side Women's Shelter. They saved my life once, and I want to help them save others. I didn't include this in my will, because Harold would fight it, and Amanda would support him without understanding. As my executrix and the child who truly sees me, I trust you to honor this final wish. The shelter needs a new security system and counseling program. This money can provide both. I'm sorry to place this burden on you, but I've watched you stand up for what's right your whole life, even when it was difficult. You have a strength I found too late. All my love, Mom. I sat in stunned silence. Pieces of my childhood rearranged themselves with this new understanding. Dad's insistence on approving every purchase. Mom's careful accounting of household expenses. Her strange habit of hiding small amounts of cash around the house for emergencies. The way she never bought anything for herself, without justifying it over and over. There were other signs I had missed. Mom declining lunch with friends because Harold thinks it's unnecessary. Mom asking Dad's permission before visiting her sister. Mom carefully planning meals only around Dad's preferences. Mom never having her own credit card, even though she worked part-time for years before we were born. It wasn't physical abuse, but it was control. It was subtle, constant, and now painfully obvious. My tears flowed freely as I realized how much Mom had hidden behind her peaceful smile. I understood how hard she had worked to protect us from this reality, and how much courage it took to build this secret fund, dollar by dollar, over decades. That night, I hardly slept. I weighed my responsibilities as executrix against my promise to honor Mom's wishes. Legally, the money belonged to the estate and should be divided. But morally and emotionally, this was Mom's independent choice, after a lifetime of having so few. The next morning, I went to the bank where I worked and spoke with our trust officer. Using my banking expertise, I carefully documented the transfer process. I would need to move the money soon, before the estate accounting was finalized. I made copies of Mom's letter and her journal entries to establish her intent. I prepared the necessary paperwork for a donation in Elaine Mitchell's name. The director of the East Side Women's Shelter, Susan Jitty, wept when I called to explain the donation. Your mother volunteered here discreetly for years, she revealed. She never shared her story with the other volunteers, but she mentored countless women. She just told them she understood their situation better than they knew. This revelation of Mom's secret volunteer work, hours she had claimed were for book club or grocery shopping, completed the picture of her hidden life. She hadn't just been saving money. She had been quietly working to help women like her younger self escape situations like the one she had normalized. I completed the transfer documentation. I made sure everything was legally processed, while preparing the general estate paperwork for the family. The donation would be made next week. I would fulfill Mom's wish before the estate accounting was presented to the family. My stomach knotted with anxiety about their reaction, but I felt a deep peace, knowing I was honoring Mom's true legacy, not just as our mother, but as a quiet warrior for women's independence and safety. The text message from Dad came on Thursday evening. Family meeting tomorrow, 7:00 p.m. my house. Everyone must attend. The formal tone and lack of explanation sent warning signals through my body. Amanda followed up with her own message. You better not miss this one, Ava. Time to clear the air. I arrived at Dad's house exactly at 7:00. I had a folder of estate documents in my hand, ready to give updates on the probate process. The atmosphere hit me the moment I walked in. It was thick with accusation and hostility. Dad sat in his leather armchair, his posture rigid and his face set in grim lines. Amanda perched beside him on the sofa, her arms crossed and her eyes narrowed. Jackson leaned awkwardly against the fireplace mantel. His eyes darted between us all. He was clearly uncomfortable but present. Sit down, Ava. Dad commanded, not bothering with a greeting. I took the seat across from him and set my folder on the coffee table. I've brought the latest estate updates, if that's what this meeting is about. Oh, it's about the estate, all right? Amanda said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Specifically, about the money that seems to have disappeared from it. My heart raced, but I kept my expression neutral. I'm not sure what you mean. All estate assets are accounted for, as you'd see in these reports. Dad leaned forward, his eyes cold. Don't play innocent. The 98,000, Ava. The account you conveniently discovered after the will reading. That account was part of Mom's personal savings. I began. Amanda interrupted. Which should be divided equally as part of the estate. Except it's gone. She dramatically produced bank statements, slapping them onto the coffee table. Dad asked Walter to request these directly from the bank. The account was emptied 3 days ago. You had no right to transfer that money anywhere. Dad's voice rose. As executrix, you have a fiduciary responsibility to the beneficiaries. I'm handling the estate exactly as Mom wanted, I said carefully. Dad's face turned red as he stood up. He pointed his finger directly at my face. Return the 98,000, or don't come back to this family? Amanda moved to stand beside him, her voice cutting. You took Mom's money. We all know it. You think just because you played nursemaid at the end, you deserve more. While we were all maintaining our lives and careers, you were positioning yourself to take advantage. The accusation stole my breath. That's not what happened. No. Amanda continued. You were alone with her constantly those last months. Who knows what you convinced her to do, what you had her sign when she was medicated and vulnerable. Jackson shifted uncomfortably. Guys, maybe we should calm down and let Ava explain. There's nothing to explain. Dad thundered. The money is gone, transferred out on her authorization. If it's not returned to the estate immediately, I'll have Walter pursue legal action for breach of fiduciary duty. I'm sure your bank would be interested to hear about their loan officer misappropriating funds. The threat to my professional reputation landed like a physical blow. Amanda saw my shock and pressed her advantage. Mom would be so disappointed in you, Ava. She trusted you, and this is how you repay that trust. By stealing from your own family. Each word felt like a knife. The people who should know me best somehow thought I was capable of theft and manipulation. The family I had sacrificed so much for over the past 2 years now saw me as an opportunist who had exploited a dying woman. You've always been jealous of what Dad and I have. Amanda continued, twisting deeper. Always trying to prove you're somehow better, more caring, more deserving. Well, this little stunt proves exactly what kind of person you really are. Jackson stepped forward. That's enough, Amanda. But his intervention was half-hearted. His eyes were still uncertain when they met mine. 1 week, Dad declared. You have 1 week to return every penny to the estate account, or I'll pursue every legal avenue available. And don't bother coming to Sunday dinner until this is resolved. The finality in his voice broke something in me. Tears welled as I gathered my untouched folder and stood. You have no idea what Mom actually wanted. None of you do. Oh, spare us the martyrdom. Amanda spat. Just fix what you've done. I walked out without another word. The weight of their accusations was crushing my chest. In my car, parked at the curb of my childhood home, I finally let the tears come. Not just for their cruelty, but for Mom. She had lived with this controlling dynamic for decades. She had carved out small spaces of independence through secret acts of resistance. She had trusted me with her truth. For the first time, I truly understood why the 98,000 existed at all. It wasn't savings, it was a reclamation of power. And now I had to decide whether to reveal Mom's secret past to defend myself, or protect her privacy, at the cost of my family relationships and possibly my career. After the confrontation, I drove aimlessly through Pittsburgh's evening streets. The city lights blurred through my tears. I eventually parked at Frick Park, Mom's favorite place to walk and think. I sat on a bench overlooking the dusky pond. I let the full weight of my situation settle over me. My options seemed impossible. I could return the money and betray Mom's final wish. Or I could keep the money where it was and lose my family, and possibly my job. Or I could reveal Mom's past trauma and private struggles to defend myself, exposing secrets she had kept for decades. A memory surfaced of Mom sitting with me in this very park after my college boyfriend cheated on me. Sometimes the hardest choice is the right one, she had said. And sometimes the people who should support you won't understand your choices. That doesn't make them wrong. Had she been speaking from experience even then? How many moments of wisdom had actually been Mom preparing me for this very conflict? I recalled her making me promise during one of our last clear conversations. When the pressure comes, be stronger than I was. Don't let them change what you know is right. I had agreed without understanding the full meaning. Now it felt like a prophecy. The next morning, I called Walter Green's office and requested a private meeting. His secretary, hearing the urgency in my voice, squeezed me in before his first appointment. Walter, I need to understand my legal position as executrix. I began after declining coffee. If I followed the deceased's explicit, written instructions that weren't included in the official will, where do I stand? Walter removed his glasses, suddenly looking very serious. Ava, has something happened with Elaine's estate? I slid Mom's letter across his desk. Mom left this for me, and a journal explaining her wishes for the 98,000 from her personal account. Walter read silently, his expression softened. When he finished, he sighed deeply. Legally speaking, without this being in the will, you're in a gray area. As executrix, you have some discretion in interpreting the deceased's intentions, but the other beneficiaries could challenge your decision. And they will, I said quietly. However, Walter continued, Lane's letter is quite clear. With this documentation of intent, you could likely defend your actions if challenged in court. But, Ava? He leaned forward. This would mean making your mother's private history a public record. Are you prepared for that? The question hit me hard. Was I willing to expose Mom's past abuse and private struggles to protect myself? Was that truly honoring her? What would happen if they pursue legal action? I asked. Worst case, you could be removed as executrix, be required to reimburse the estate, and potentially face professional consequences given your banking position. Best case, the court upholds your decision based on Elaine's documented wishes, but the family relationships are irreparably damaged. I thanked Walter for his honesty and left with even more to consider. The legal danger was real, but somehow less important than the moral dilemma I faced. That afternoon, I visited the East Side Women's Shelter. Mom's donation had already been received. The building was modest but well maintained, with security cameras at every entrance. The first improvement made with Mom's gift. Susan Jitty, the director, welcomed me warmly. I still can't believe Elaine's generosity. This donation will transform our services. She gave me a tour. She introduced me to staff and a few residents who were comfortable meeting visitors. In Susan's office, covered with thank you drawings from children who had stayed there, I finally asked the question burning inside me. Did my mother ever talk about her experience? About why she volunteered? Susan studied me carefully before responding. Your mother was intensely private about her past. But she was our most dedicated volunteer for crisis counseling. She helped women who had just arrived, terrified and doubting their decision to leave. Elaine could reach them when no one else could. She paused. She had a way of saying, I understand, that they believed, because it was true. As Susan shared stories of women my mother had helped. Women who had escaped with their children in the middle of the night. Women who had rebuilt their lives from nothing. I felt Mom's presence more strongly than I had since her death. This was her true legacy. Not the jewelry or money or property being divided among us. I met privately with a young mother named Tara. She clutched her sleeping toddler, while telling me how Miss Elaine had sat with her through panic attacks, helped her apply for jobs, and babysat her son during interviews. She told me that leaving doesn't make you weak, it makes you brave. That it's never too late to start over. Tara's eyes filled with tears. I wouldn't have made it without her. Driving home, I realized Mom had created the life she truly wanted in these secret hours away from Dad's control. She had transformed her pain into purpose, her trauma into healing for others. And she had trusted me to ensure this work continued after she was gone. The memory of another conversation surfaced. Mom, in her hospital bed, on one of her stronger days when clarity broke through the medication fog. There's steel in you, Ava. You hide it better than I did, but it's there. When the moment comes to use it, don't hesitate. That night, I spread everything on my dining room table, Mom's journal, her letter, the bank documents, the shelter's grateful acknowledgement of the donation, and Walter's legal assessment. I read and reread until the path forward became perfectly clear. I wouldn't return the money. I wouldn't betray Mom's wishes. But I also wouldn't expose her secrets unless it was absolutely necessary. There had to be a way to honor both her intent and her privacy. With new purpose, I began preparing for another confrontation. I made copies of the bank withdrawal slips, the transaction records, and the shelter's official receipt. I drafted a statement explaining my actions as executrix without revealing Mom's personal history. I rehearsed responses to every accusation I could imagine. The hardest part was accepting that I might lose my family over this. But as dawn broke over my sleepless night of preparation, I realized something important. I was already losing the illusion of a family, not the reality of one. A true family wouldn't have ambushed me with accusations. A true father wouldn't have threatened my livelihood. A true sister wouldn't have twisted my caregiving into an opportunity for theft. Maybe, like Mom, I needed to redefine family on my own terms. Maybe honoring her final wish was also about honoring the strength she had tried to build in me. The money was already where it belonged. Now I just needed to face the consequences with the same quiet courage Mom had shown throughout her life. 2 days before Dad's deadline expired, I texted everyone. Family meeting regarding estate matters. Tomorrow 6:00 p.m., my apartment. All must attend. I ignored the flurry of responses demanding we meet at Dad's house instead. This confrontation would happen on my terms, in my space. I spent hours preparing my apartment. I didn't just clean, I strategically arranged the evidence I had gathered. The dining table became my command center, with folders labeled for each family member. I prepared coffee and Mom's favorite lemon cookies, not as a peace offering, but as a reminder of whose legacy we were really discussing. At exactly 6:00, the doorbell rang. They arrived together, a united front. Dad's face was like a thundercloud. Amanda looked triumphant, assuming I had given in. Only Jackson looked uncertain, offering a small, apologetic smile as they filed into my living room. I hope this meeting means you've come to your senses. Dad began without a greeting. He remained standing while everyone else sat. I've made a decision, I replied calmly. But first, I'd like everyone to sit at the dining table. There are things you need to see. We don't need to see anything except a transfer confirmation returning the money to the estate. Amanda snapped. Either sit down and hear me out, or leave now and contact me through Walter, I said, surprising even myself with my steady tone. Those are the only options today. Something in my demeanor must have registered because they exchanged glances before reluctantly moving to the dining table where their folders waited. Dad took the head position out of habit. I let him. Before we begin, I want to be clear, I have not taken a single penny from Mom's estate for personal use, I stated, looking each of them in the eye. The 98,000 has been donated to the East Side Women's Shelter, in accordance with Mom's explicit written instructions to me. Written where? Dad demanded. Not in her will. In this letter, I said, sliding copies across the table, which she left with specific instructions for the money she had independently saved for 20 years. They read in confused silence. Amanda spoke first, scoffing. This proves nothing. You could have written this yourself. Which is why I also have these. I continued, removing copies of Mom's journal from a protective sleeve. Mom's private journal, documenting how and why she saved this money over 2 decades. I didn't hand over the journal itself. Instead, I provided selected copies of entries showing Mom's long-term intention for the donation. I was careful to exclude the most personal details of her past trauma. This is ridiculous, Dad blustered, though with less certainty. Elaine never kept secrets from me, didn't she? I asked quietly. Dad, when's the last time Mom made a purchase over 50 Zia without discussing it with you first? His silence was telling. Did you know Mom volunteered at this shelter for 15 years? Or that she had a reason, deeply personal to her, for supporting their work? Amanda interrupted. Stop trying to distract from what you did. Even if Mom wanted this donation, which I don't believe for a second, you had no legal right to make it without consulting us. The money belongs to the estate. You're right that I took a legal risk, I acknowledged. But I chose to honor Mom's wishes over legal technicalities. Well, your choice has consequences, Dad said, finding his footing again. Walter will file a complaint tomorrow. Before you do that, I said, reaching for the final folder. You should understand exactly what making this legal would mean. I placed the bank teller's slips and the donation receipt on the table with deliberate slowness. These confirm that every penny went to the shelter, exactly as Mom instructed. Nothing to my account or for my benefit. Then came the most difficult part. I slid forward a sealed envelope. This contains the full, unredacted journal entries explaining why this shelter mattered so personally to Mom. If we go to court, this becomes public record. Every detail about Mom's life before she met you, Dad, becomes available for anyone to read. Their faces began to pale as the implications sank in. Mom kept certain parts of her life private for her own reasons. I've respected that privacy in handling this donation. The question is whether you're willing to expose her most personal trauma to win a legal battle over money none of us actually needs. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Jackson broke it first. Ava's right. Mom chose her as executrix for a reason. If Mom wanted this donation made, we should respect that, regardless of the legal stuff. Amanda's eyes narrowed. Easy for you to say. Your art collection is worth more than your share of this money would have been. This isn't about the money. I finally raised my voice. This is about respecting Mom's one independent choice after a lifetime of having so few. This is about honoring what mattered to her, not what benefits us. Dad stared at the receipt, his expression unreadable. The East Side Women's Shelter, he said slowly. Elaine mentioned this place sometimes, said they did good work. I never thought much about it. They help women escape abusive situations, I said carefully. They provide safety, counseling, job training, childcare. Everything needed to start over. And Elaine wanted her money to go there, Dad stated. It wasn't a question this time. Yes. For reasons that were deeply meaningful to her. Dad looked at the sealed envelope containing the full truth, then at me. Something shifted in his eyes. It wasn't full understanding, but perhaps the beginning of doubt. I won't return the money, I said firmly. I've fulfilled my duty as executrix according to Mom's explicit instructions. If you want to challenge that legally, that's your choice. But understand what that choice reveals about your priorities compared to Mom's. Amanda started to argue, but Dad raised his hand, silencing her. The gesture itself, so controlling, so unconsciously dominating, seemed to hang in the air between us, a living demonstration of the dynamic Mom had navigated for decades. You're asking us to trust you without a full explanation, Dad said finally. I'm asking you to trust Mom, I corrected, to believe she had her reasons, even if she didn't share them with you. The moment was balanced on a knife's edge. Their need to control was battling with the growing realization that pushing further would reveal secrets, perhaps better left buried. I watched the calculation happen behind their eyes, the weighing of 98,000 against potential public revelations about our family. Jackson spoke into the tense silence. I trust you, Ava. And I trusted Mom. His simple statement broke something in the room. Amanda's perfect posture slumped slightly. Dad's authoritative presence shrank. The united front against me developed its first significant crack. The money is already gone, I said quietly. The shelter's security system is being upgraded as we speak. The counseling program Mom wanted will start next month. Her legacy is already in motion. The only question now is whether we tear our family apart fighting over her wish, or find a way to accept it and move forward. Their faces had gone completely pale now. The realization was settling in that I wouldn't be bullied or threatened. That for the first time in our family history, Dad's authority and Amanda's manipulation weren't going to win. That Mom, from beyond the grave, had finally found her voice through mine. The days after our confrontation brought an uneasy peace. Dad withdrew his threat of legal action without saying he was wrong. Amanda kept a chilly distance but stopped making accusations. Jackson called regularly. Our relationship actually grew stronger through the conflict. 2 weeks later, Dad asked me to meet him for coffee. It was at the small cafe where he used to take Mom on Sunday mornings. He looked older, somehow smaller. He stirred his black coffee endlessly before speaking. I've been thinking about your mother, he began awkwardly. About things I might have overlooked. I waited, giving him space to find his words. I always thought I was protecting her by handling our finances, that it was my responsibility as her husband to make those decisions. He stared into his cup. It never occurred to me that she might see it differently. It wasn't an apology, exactly, but from Dad, it was a huge step. We talked for nearly 2 hours. We circled difficult subjects without addressing them directly. Dad shared memories of Mom I had never heard, glimpses of their early relationship before control became a habit. I offered stories from Mom's final months that he had missed by keeping his distance. Her courage, her humor, even in pain, her concern for everyone but herself. She chose you as executrix because you see people clearly, he said finally. I've never had that gift. As he paid the bill, he added awkwardly, the shelter. It's a good cause. Your mother would be pleased. Amanda took longer to thaw. Her pride wouldn't allow a direct apology. But she eventually invited me to her daughter's dance recital. It was an olive branch in the form of a text message with a date, time, and location, nothing more. I went. I applauded sincerely and brought flowers for my niece. In the lobby afterward, Amanda and I managed a polite conversation that didn't touch on mom or money or the past. They're building a new counseling wing, I mentioned carefully as we watched the girls compare costumes at the shelter. Amanda stiffened slightly before responding. Good, that's good. Then after a pause, will they name it after mom? Yes. The Elaine Mitchell Counseling Center. There's a dedication next month. She nodded once, sharply. Let me know when. The girls have a competition that weekend, but maybe we could stop by. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was an acknowledgement. It was the beginning of a new, more honest relationship, built on who we really were, not the roles we had played. Jackson proved to be my strongest ally. He called me the day after our confrontation. I should have stood up for you sooner, he admitted. I knew you wouldn't steal from mom. I just couldn't find my voice until it was almost too late. Mom would understand that better than anyone, I assured him. Together, we sorted through mom's remaining belongings. We shared memories and discovered new sides to her through her collections and keepsakes. In her sewing basket, we found small notes she had written to herself, affirmations, poetry, quotes about courage. Your boundaries deserve protection. One read. Another, helping others heals you. She was so much more complicated than I realized, Jackson said, holding a worn copy of Their Eyes Were Watching God, filled with mom's notes. I wish I'd known her better. Me too, I admitted. I thought I knew her completely, and I still missed so much. The process of grieving mom transformed as I took in this new understanding of her life. I mourned not just her death, but the limits of her life, the dreams she put aside, the voice she kept quiet. Yet I also celebrated her quiet resistance, her secret giving, her ability to create meaning despite those limits. I began volunteering at the shelter myself. Not in crisis counseling as mom had done, but offering financial literacy workshops for women establishing independence. Many had never managed their own money. They had no knowledge of banking, credit, or financial planning. Teaching them these skills felt like extending mom's legacy while using my own strengths. 3 months after mom's death, I started a support group for adult children of controlling parents. We created a space for conversations I wished I had had years earlier. We met weekly in a community center, sharing strategies for setting boundaries, recognizing manipulation, and breaking generational patterns. Each meeting ended with mom's favorite quote: "Understanding your past doesn't require repeating it." The dedication ceremony for the Elaine Mitchell Counseling Center happened on a brilliant October day, exactly 6 months after mom's passing. The shelter was transformed with the security upgrades and renovations her donation had funded. A simple plaque beside the entrance read, "Where courage finds safety and new beginnings become possible." Susan gave a moving speech about mom's years of service. Women mom had helped shared stories of her impact on their lives. I spoke briefly about mom's belief in second chances. As I finished my remarks, a movement at the back of the crowd caught my eye. Dad stood there, uncomfortable in his suit, but present. It was a single gesture of respect. Our eyes met briefly before he nodded once and slipped away. He hadn't come to participate, but to witness, and somehow that felt right. Amanda didn't attend but sent a flower arrangement with a card reading simply, "She would be proud." Jackson stayed through the entire ceremony, helping serve refreshments and connecting warmly with the staff who had known mom. In the years since that confrontation in my dining room, our family has settled into a new normal. It's more distant in some ways, but more authentic. Dad calls weekly. Our conversations are careful but increasingly genuine. Amanda and I maintain polite contact, centered around the children. Jackson and I have grown closer than ever, united in our efforts to understand our family patterns without repeating them. The 98 Zaloznan that nearly tore us apart has now helped dozens of women and children start new lives. Mom's secret rebellion became a public legacy that will outlive us all. The money that represented her quiet reclamation of power now empowers others to make the brave choices she made too late in her own life. I've learned that true inheritance isn't measured in dollars or property. Mom left me something far more valuable than money. She left me her courage, her integrity, and finally, her truth. She trusted me not just with her assets, but with her story, believing I would honor both. Family wealth doesn't just reveal character, It reveals the truth about power, about values, about what we believe we owe each other. Our family's painful reckoning stripped away the pretenses and forced us to see each other as we really are, not the roles we had been assigned. I still keep Mom's journal in my bedside drawer. I read entries when I need her wisdom or courage. The last page contains a quote she had carefully copied. "The greatest gift you can give your children is not protection from change, challenge, or difficulty, but the confidence that they can overcome anything with truth and integrity." That confidence sustains me now as I continue to honor her legacy while building my own. Breaking cycles of control and secrecy requires daily courage, a constant vigilance against falling into familiar patterns. Healing isn't a destination but a practice, one I recommit to each day in Mom's memory. What about you? Have you ever had to stand up for what's right against family pressure, or discovered something about a loved one that changed how you understood them? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and like this video so others facing similar family challenges might find it. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, sometimes the greatest act of love is honoring someone's truth, even when it's difficult. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.